Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Agency Life. My name is Clodagh, and with me today, I have entrepreneur and EOS implementer, Todd Smart. Welcome to the show, Todd.
Thank you for having me.
Todd, tell us a little bit about your background on how you actually became an entrepreneur and EOS implementer.
I am started when I was 23 years old and founded my first business that went over $1 million in revenue. And I've had 8 startups over the last 29 years now. And I'm currently involved in 3 things. But before I touch on those, I have had an agency myself between 2003 and 2011, a content marketing agency. And I've now taken 80 leadership teams through the EOS journey, approximately 15 of them agencies. And so I've had quite a bit of experience with EOS and agencies. The 3 things that I'm currently a part of is that I am an EOS implementer and carry 14 to 18 clients that I'm coaching at any given time. I'm also a co-founder of Traction Tools, which is the software for EOS. And if you're running EOS within your agency, this is like a track for your train. It makes running EOS much more predictable and likely to succeed. And then the last thing I'm a part of is TF Investors, which is a growth equity fund that invests in companies that are running on EOS and profitable, that are looking for a professional EOS-friendly partner. And so that's really exciting too. So
Very
those are
cool. Yeah.
3 professional things I have going on, all of them kind of in the EOS orbit.
All in that EOS. How did you come across EOS in the first place?
I know Gino through a nonprofit called the Entrepreneurs Organization
Right.
from way back. And so one of his first clients was a friend of mine up in Minneapolis who kept on telling me in the early aughts, oh, you've got to meet this Gino guy. Oh, you've got to meet this Gino guy.
Yeah, and that's how it came. Did you implement EOS in your own agency, the agency that you had?
You know, the tools that EOS is comprised of have been around forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I've used all these tools before. And I started using these in my own businesses and helping other businesses use these in the year 2000. So 20 years ago. I just never successfully packaged it and simplified it as much as Gino and EOS Worldwide was able to.
Yeah.
They were able to put together a system that makes this accessible to a small and medium-sized business. It's simple enough you can actually put it in place.
It is, yeah. And what were you using to gather everything together before Traction Tools? Because
Spreadsheets mostly, because even
yeah.
we didn't have Asana or Trello or any of these other tools either.
Yeah.
So it was all spreadsheet based.
Yeah.
But after about, when I met my co-founder, Clay, of Traction Tools, and I ran my first 3 level 10s on it back about 5 years ago, we both looked at each other like, no way are we ever going back to the spreadsheets.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
It's clearly better.
I know it's a big part of my recommendation. My kind of tech stack that I recommend for people is definitely whether they've started, or even if ideally, would you say before starting, actually when you're going on the first part of the journey, as opposed to trying the spreadsheets and then hopping into Traction Tools, do you bring it in the beginning?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right away with Focus Day, and we start putting the tools in the software right away on day 1.
Fantastic. Yeah. And that holds everything together and it's live instead of going, which version is that?
Yeah.
I remember those days. Tell us more about working with agencies. Obviously you've got that incredible experience, and this is our audience. Everyone knows I talk pretty much every episode about how great Traction is. As a lot of agencies have done some implementation. What are the types of things that you've actually seen agencies get stuck on that you could talk to us about?
Well, most of the agencies that I've coached the leadership team in doing EOS have been stuck in the 6 to 10 or 6 to $12 million revenue range. And my theory about why so many agencies get stuck here is that you have a couple partners that are tapping their network and selling, and they can bring in a certain amount of new business every year. Let's just say, for conversation's sake and easy math, that it's $2 million a year
right.
worth of new business that the partners have the ability to bring in. what happens is they start their agency and they turn on $2 million worth of revenue, and then they sell another two the next year, and now they've got a $4 million agency, and they lose a few clients that year, and then they turn on another 2 million, and now they're at like 5.5 million, and they turn on another 2 million, now they're at like 7, and they get to about $8 million a year, and they're churning 25% of their clients every year. So maybe the average client stays for 4 years, but at 8 million a year, they're losing 2 million a year worth of revenue. And that's all that the partners have the capacity to bring on board every year, and the business plateaus. And then they try everything that they've tried in the past, and nothing can get their business development scaling past this 2 million bucks a year that they know how to bring on. And the business just sits there and gets stuck at 8 million. And then assuming they have the overhead in place to be a growth business, as soon as they're no longer growing, the bottom line then falls completely off the table. And it's a very frustrating time for them, because up until now, they started the agency 5 years ago, and they've been growing like gangbusters, and they think they've got like some secret sauce, and then they hit this plateau, and not only do they stop growing, but then their profits fall apart at the same time. And this is often when you'll find the owners seeking something new or a new way. And those are mostly the agencies that come across EOS, in my experience, and that they're between it's like 6 and 12 million. And what has been working no longer works, and they're stuck, and they don't know what's next. And some friend of theirs that owns an agency says, you got to try EOS. And then they end up finding a coach.
And then they start to put some processes and procedures in place to actually get them over and get that knowledge and get probably the structure, I would imagine, Todd, is a huge thing for them, because owners of businesses tend to like to do things their own way, bringing in a structure and a formula.
Especially if they've been succeeding, like most of these agencies from startup to the plateau, they've been succeeding. And so for years, this has reinforced the idea that we're really smart and we're successful and we know what we're doing. And it's disappointing to everybody, of course, when those things stop and they have to face the reality like, hey, maybe we're just like all these other small and medium-sized agencies that get stuck at this plateau.
Yeah. They're not magic.
They're not as magical as they think they are. And that's a little deflating, especially, because one of the owners at this point has written a book, and then they're out on the speaking circuit telling everybody how great they are. And then all of a sudden they have a business that stopped growing and is now breaking even. And they're like, and then they have a little imposter syndrome, and they're like, why am I out here, doing keynote talks, saying how great we are when we ran a break even business this year.
And that affects their confidence then. And then people can see that they get, when you're not confident as a salesperson, people pick up on that. And then it becomes more challenging to sell. So very interesting perspective there from it. So what are one of the fundamental things, if someone's listening now going, oh my God, that's us. That's what we're going through right now. What are some of the things that need to go in place apart from EOS and reaching out?
Yeah, well, a few things that I see with the agency clients of mine. First, there are too many visionary or creative people on the leadership team.
Right.
And I believe that this is a function of when the business is small, that the ops department or the creative department where the service is being generated is part of the leadership team, because it's a small business. And so the ops department is often collapsed with the leadership team from startup.
Yeah.
But then they stay there. And so now you've got your $6 to $12 million agency, and you have the ops or creative department where you're making your product or service collapsed with the leadership team. And it's just too much creative energy for the leadership team, which is much more of like a strategic and administrative and compliance and legal and tax and all these other things that come with running a $6 to $12 million business. So one of the first things that we've done with EOS, or that I've done in the clients I've coached, is that we get really honest and transparent about this topic, and we separate the leadership team from the making of the sausage or the creating of the service. And sometimes that's really difficult for some of the egos, because there's some kind of status associated with being on the leadership team.
Right, yeah.
But for the greater good of the business, we have to separate the ops department from the leadership team. And often in this process, we will paint a picture of what being on the leadership team is as quite boring and repetitive tasks.
Yeah.
It's not a place for a creative to have a lot of fun. It's like administrative and compliance and boring. We have to figure out a lot of things about how to run the business, not about how to create our service.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say in the beginning, probably promises were made going, you're in on the ground floor, the longer somebody is there, it's a presumption that they will move into leadership team or they will be on that. It's when there's actually other paths in the agency when you line those up and go, actually, this is where your area of expertise is.
Yes. It's also, I think, assumed that the people on the leadership team will be the best paid people inside the agency.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
yeah.
and that does not have to be true.
Mm-mm.
That just like a tech firm where often the best paid people are in the engineering department and not on the leadership team, with a creative agency, you can have some incredible high producers that are just magical folks and not on the leadership team. And they could be being compensated more than anybody that's on the leadership team. And so once we start laying it out as it's not as sexy as you think it is, and it doesn't necessarily mean that your pay is going to get capped, a lot of those creative folks would much rather not be on the team.
Right. Yeah. And that's where they say things like, oh, this, they kind of start to dread the meeting because they don't see the benefits of it. And then they can pull a meeting down with their energy and because their lack of interest, because it isn't what they're good at either. Right. Have you seen that before?
Right. They've pulled together the leadership team in a haphazard way where the business has grown up, and they never took a step back and looked at the whole picture to see like, man, okay, this is where the right roles would be. And of course in EOS speak, that is the accountability chart conversation.
Yeah.
I have in agencies particularly seen a lot of ego at the leadership team that gets really hurt when we agree transparently with them in the room that the best choice for the running of the business going forward is not to include them in the team. Sometimes it even causes turnover, and sometimes it's a little bit of a cultural rift. It feels like a demotion to some folks, even if their compensation doesn't change.
Right.
And so these are really delicate conversations at the beginning of an EOS implementation to make sure that you don't upset the cultural apple cart.
Yeah.
They have to be handled transparently and professionally, which is, so at the beginning of an implementation, the implementer or coach like myself, or there's 370 of us worldwide now, having a coach, especially at the beginning of the journey, I think is so critical. An objective third party that has seen these scenarios before. So that's one of the things, that too many visionaries. And then what really gets some stuck is that when they believe that everybody that has equity or everybody that's a partner needs to be on the leadership team.
Right.
And that is absolutely not true.
Correct.
And leadership teams with more than one visionary on them are a royal pain in the butt to work with. And being on those teams has to be equally miserable. It's all big ideas and no execution.
Nobody taking the actual reins and implementing it. Have you ever worked with husband and wife teams in that capacity then?
Oh yeah, not my favorite.
Oh.
If you've got relatives on the leadership team or even best friends, man, what a recipe for a shit show.
Yeah.
You have to have a lot of humility and you really want to use an outside coach at that point.
Oh, absolutely.
Otherwise, Thanksgiving or, your whatever your holiday is in Ireland, right? That's the equivalent.
Yeah, well, we've got a bit of Thanksgiving going on here. We've borrowed that. Any excuse, for more eating and drinking. We love that. We've taken it, but it can make things awkward. Yeah. So getting someone to ask very perspective type questions and just the honest questions so that they can peel apart that leadership team and get the right people in there. A lot of egos wrapped in it. These people have worked so hard. You know how hard it is to run an agency. They're very, I love, they're very eccentric. I find them, they're quite quirky. They're really passionate. And they do put a lot of their personality goes around in the agency. It's quite an obvious thing that can happen. But no room for it if you do want to have the business that you dream of.
Yeah, if you want to break out of this stuck spot,
Yeah,
you've got to have the right people in the right seats for the right reasons. And back to your husband-wife question, I mean, imagine how delicate it is when having a honest and open, transparent conversation, the leadership team concludes that one of those folks should not be on the leadership team.
yeah.
Still get to retain your equity and your ownership in the agency, but we don't need both of you here. It's actually disruptive. One of your skill sets is in sales, and we could really use you in the sales department, but you don't have to attend these boring leadership team meetings. Why don't you go work within the sales department? And if there's enough humility to pull that off, those are the agencies that end up getting unstuck.
Right.
Often, I don't know why it is in the agency model that there tends to be more ego at the top. Often the ego gets in the way of people getting in the right seat for the greater good.
Yeah.
And they just insist, like a child with their favorite toy, that they need to be on the leadership team, and the business stays stuck.
Wow. Yeah. A huge amount of effort has gone into them getting there, and then it is a big process to try and get them to go, you are not your this is a business, you are not the business.
Right.
And I generally try a number of one of the things that I do is, it's like I give the analogy of kids and a toy. You've got to give them a new toy to get the old toy off them. So we have to find doing some deep dive, and I think asking yourself, like, why do I want to hold on to this so much? What is that about? It's probably because you're afraid of the unknown, and so getting you into the right thing, going, look, but you're really good at this, you're really good at the sales, you should own the sales team and make the most out of them. Sometimes it's swapping the toy.
Yeah, and I also think a recognition that the leadership team that you have as a $5 million agency, that almost nobody from that team will be on the leadership team when you're a $20 million agency.
Mm-hmm.
And of the people that are on the team when you're a $20 million agency, almost nobody from that team will be on the leadership team when you're a $50 million agency.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but it's very few leaders that are able to grow as fast as a business can grow. Because just think about it. I mean, it took you 40 years to grow into this professional, and now the business is going to double in the next 3 years.
Right.
You know what took you 40 years to get this good, you're not going to get twice as good as a professional in the next 3 years. We're going to have to, you're going to be working within a department, and we're going to hire somebody else who's going to be your boss, and they're going to come with more experience, and they'll have worked at a larger agency, and they'll know how to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And boy, just having the humility to get in the right seat for the greater good of the business is really fantastic.
Yeah, that's a great word to use, humility, for it. I think that's a really interesting word, and just having that conversation of going, look, what do you really want here? Do you want to hang on to this and squeeze it to death, or do you want to move on and have that better business? And hiring, like you said, great example there of hiring people that are better than you in certain areas, that you can be good at your own area, but better people to take the business to the next level. We've had a lot of changes in the last year. What has the last 6 months been like, and how different, what's been different for you with the businesses that you work with, Todd?
Oh, the COVID related changes.
Lockdown.
It's been less of a change than you'd think. Of course, we're doing all kinds of facilitation virtually and meetings virtually, like everybody.
Yes.
Traction Tools, the software for EOS, did spin up some virtual tools for focus day, VB1, VB2, and the quarterlies. And so, and you can use those for free. You can just go sign up for a free trial and use those tools. So I've been doing my sessions with clients from all over the place. I took my family, I live downtown Chicago. I have 4 young kids. And when COVID hit, we went to the country for 4 months.
Wow.
And was able to do all the coaching with my clients remotely during that period of time. But interesting and a surprise to me, because I haven't done much remote work before COVID, is that we're finding the days to be more effective and efficient. We're getting the same amount of work done in about an hour less.
Oh,
And that was a pleasant surprise. The unpleasant part is it takes a little bit more energy. Something about being remote, I find myself exhausted, and sometimes I'm coming home and falling asleep at 8 o'clock and like before the kids, you know?
they're reading you a bedtime story, Todd.
Right. There's something a little extra draining about the
Yeah.
remote sessions, and I'm really excited for in person to be back on whenever it's safe for all of us to be doing that. This is the beginning of September right now as we're recording this, right? And so about 50% of my clients are now in-person sessions with social distancing, and 50% continue to be remote.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Is how it is now.
And did you, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I could think I'm just going to repeat myself, but that they're effective remote is such a sigh of relief from all of us, the clients and the coaches. Like, holy cow, because we had some concerns and fear there in March, like everybody, like, is this business model and the way that we help teams, is this going to work?
Right. Yeah.
And
Can it transfer?
Works. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, it was very in the beginning, because I know you do there's the amazing in-person focus days and everything. There is, like, I've met so many implementers over the years, and you are very personable people, you know, like you're very talented, you're very smart at what you do, but it is because you really care about people and their business. It's not a job to you guys, you know, it's very much you're involved and you're passionate for those people. And so, yes, to take that away, I can totally imagine that. And I think everyone's experiencing that is just such a relief to hear, because I think that's the first thing is like, how are we going to do our days, you know, to hear that you can socially distance, probably. Actually, we should talk about how did you arrange that? What did you actually create? And do you choose a particular type of venue, or how did you organize a socially distancing meeting?
Nothing innovative here, but we've done it a number of different ways, including one outdoor session.
Nice.
At a club here in Chicago. I've done a session at one of the owners' homes where they chased everybody out of the house for the day, and it was a large house, and we were able to socially distance.
Great idea. Yeah.
I've done one in the training facilities at my clients, where they've got these large rooms where we're able to be like 10 feet apart.
Brilliant. Great.
But I'm also doing a bunch in my session room. I built a facility to do exactly EOS in downtown Chicago, and it's large enough. We're probably not keeping 6 feet apart, but we're staying 4 or 5 foot apart and wearing masks coming in and out of the building, and we're bumping elbows rather than giving hugs.
Yeah.
Not as intimate, I'll tell you that. I like the hugs better.
I know. No, the not hugging has become very sort of a strange thing to not do when you're a hugger. I'd say the non-huggers are loving this, but for the huggers, it is awkward. I feel very awkward standing with someone, not hugging them.
Yeah. It's the missing for me. Hey, I wanted to kind of complete some of that other stuff we were talking about, all the things where people are stuck.
Yes, please. Absolutely. Yep.
And now I have had some agencies that have gotten unstuck. And there's a couple things that I see. I don't think that any of this will be rocket science, but I'd like to share it anyway.
Please, absolutely. That's what the show is all about. So great. Whatever gold wisdom you can give us, get it out.
So often how this implementation begins, this is not just agencies, but all people doing EOS, is that you often have to upgrade 1 or 2 people on the leadership team. So hopefully, assuming you want to keep those people, they do remain within the business and work in one of the departments. But if you're going to do EOS rigorously and really get the results quickly, should be ready for a little turnover or upgrading of talent on the leadership team.
Nice.
Then another thing that I've seen work is doing the same thing that the agency has been winning at forever, whatever it is that you're really great at winning, and simply going after larger clients. I have an agency here in Chicago who's busted through and maybe is one of the most successful independent agencies here in town now, couple hundred folks, and they've been successful at going up market, and now mostly their clients are Fortune 500 companies, and they're doing the same things they were doing for small and medium-sized businesses. It's just the larger companies can pay more and have bigger needs.
Amazing.
So
Great.
that's been successful for breaking out.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I've seen is that you could, if you get a real tight niche, you can often systematize the sales process within a tight niche where it's not just the owners or partners. It's not that big relationship sell anymore, but something that can be systematized where you could have average quality salespeople following an above average process, getting a consistent result and being able to scale.
Nice.
Also, a big key to breaking out and getting unstuck, because part of being stuck is that they're only able to generate as much new business as the business they lose every year, is making sure that you are getting referrals and repeat business.
Right.
That people obsessing about retaining clients and getting referrals from the existing clients. As an 8-time startup guy myself, I will go as far as saying I never want to be in a business again where I'm not growing based on referrals and repeat clients. If it has to be going out and finding cold leads and turning them into customers, what a hard way to scratch out some growth.
Yeah, really tough way to do it. And that way you're going to start working with people that you really like as well, because referral people, you know, that they've had a good result from you, they're going to share that information. And then that in itself is almost like a niche in that respect, because that great client has a good friend or a colleague or somebody that they know, and then you're starting to create almost like a personality type of client that you really enjoy working with.
Yeah. So that's either do the same thing you're doing and going after bigger clients, or pick a tighter niche and systematize the sales process and get a bunch more people selling other than just the partners. And then I've got 4 things that are not agency specific, but I do see that are so about half of the clients I coach are growing really fast, 20 to 100% a year, some of them doubling or, tripling every year.
Yeah.
The 50% of my clients that are growing the fastest all have 4 things in common. And I've started to just recognize this pattern over the last few years. So could I share those 4 things with you?
Absolutely. That's fantastic, because whether they're for whether an agency is still a business. So yeah, absolutely. Right.
So the first one is that they are decisive in their people decisions and their people moves. This is, they move quickly once they recognize a change that needs to be made with people. I am guilty. When I had my agency, I kept somebody on board for 2 years after I knew I should have let her go. And it just, I don't know, I was scared of her. She wore black lipstick and stuff, she was very creative and
there's a tip.
and a nice person. We were just culturally different. And so I procrastinated and put off. I avoided the confrontation. And then when I finally did it, it was easy, and I knew I should have done it years before. Decisive in your people moves. One of my best, most successful clients, the very first day that I met them 4 years ago, there was a person on the leadership team, happened to be in the marketing seat, who was not of the same caliber as the rest of the team. And the day after, I talked to the founder of the business and said, hey, I don't know if it occurred for you like this, but for me, this one individual didn't seem to be up to snuff like the rest of the team. And he's like, I felt the same way when I was leaving yesterday. I talked to her this morning and I already removed her from the leadership team. So like decisive people
Yes.
move.
Yeah.
As soon as you know that this person is not a permanent part of your team or a permanent part of your business, that you are doing something about it in the next couple days, not the next couple weeks, not coming up with all these rationalizations for why you should hold on to the person longer or make exceptions. Decisive people moves is completely related to getting fast improvements in your business. So that's the
Brilliant.
first of the four things. Okay.
Yeah. Brilliant.
What if it's a weakness of yours, delegate this to somebody else, but figure out a way that your business makes very fast, decisive people moves. Hopefully fact-based decisions, not feeling-based decisions.
Yeah.
The scorecard and the quarterly conversations within EOS can be great tools for this to help you bring facts to your people decisions.
Great idea.
I love
Yeah.
the people analyzer in this regard, and that should be being filled out 4 times a year for everybody that works at the agency.
Yeah, absolutely.
The second thing of these 4 things that all my fast growing clients share is that they are obsessed about training. And in some regards, they become the best agency in the whole region to go get trained. They just become known for it. They are an excellent agency at training their people, and they invest in training all the time, over and over. They obsess about training. And the good news is, maybe the fear is you're going to train people and they're going to go to your competition as they grow.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what else happens. You grow your own internal talent. They are a great cultural fit. They're more loyal than the employees you recruit from the field. And when you train and grow your own people, there's a certain gratitude that comes with it. And so although you might be training some people that are going to be at your competition someday, the alternative is worse. So
True.
you have to be investing in training. Another thing that's very similar is they invest in their culture. And this is like establishing a culture committee where nobody on the leadership team is on the culture committee.
Yeah.
They give budget to these things. And, creating a culture in very layman's terms for me is just like, hey, is it fun for all of us to come to work and work together?
Right.
And there's a lot more fancy ways to explain or define culture, but that's how it occurs for me in the simplest form is it fun to be here? So that's the third thing. So it's decisive people moves. It's investing in training, investing in culture through the good times and the bad. They keep on energy into these. The last one is that the whole agency celebrates sales. I've had some agency clients when there's a new gig that's landed, somebody sells and closes a new client, that the ops department or other departments go, shit, that's just going to be more work for us.
Oh my goodness.
Like there's internal resistance where the salesperson is almost apologizing. They're like, I know it's a little, I promised this stuff and it's not exactly our cookie cutter offering, but they're paying a premium for it. And ops is complaining about it. The ones that grow, when somebody lands a new deal, everybody in the organization, HR, administrative, finance, ops people, everybody is like, woohoo!
Yeah.
Ring the bell. We're all super excited about that because salespeople are often praise and words of affirmation people.
Yes, they are.
So you need a culture that celebrates sales.
Yeah. Brilliant. And yeah, I actually talk, that has come up quite a few times. I've done some training for agencies on this. I have a talk which actually explains how an agency works, because I think sometimes what had happened, people come into the business and they don't understand how the agency operates, as in, like this deal that comes in, okay, it's 10 grand a month. However, here are all the expenses that have to go out to support that. I think an employee can look at an agency and go, God, your man's raking it in. Look at all these big 10K a month clients. And it's like, you don't understand how much it costs to run this business. And then when they understand the importance of their time, of getting a result really quickly for, doing great work in a reasonable amount of time that delivers good results, when they understand that they are the business, it does really help with that mindset. And a great idea about celebrating sales. I think, if they all understand and appreciate it, a salesperson isn't apologizing. those 4 tips are incredible, Todd. I really, really appreciate them. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. As you are doing the work you're doing and mentoring agencies, boy, if you find some silver bullets or recipes for getting unstuck, in this $6 to $12 million range and then
Mm,
busting out and becoming a 20, 30, $40 million agency, I would love you to share those with me. I think
yeah.
this is a conundrum that's out there in the
Mm,
agency model,
yeah.
and that we all need to be putting our heads together for how
Yeah.
agencies can break out of this stuck spot.
Yeah, we definitely do. So definitely the business development area, that whole area of the process. It's not, the sales process needs to be something that's done every day by a person. It can't be the business owner going, I feel like doing a bit of sales today. Oh no, hang on, there's a fire over here I've got to put out.
Yeah.
That systemization, I absolutely agree. And also I find, and maybe you've seen this too, sometimes if the owner of the business is involved in sales, I get the big deals, I understand it, but sometimes they get a bit emotional about the deal and they might start throwing in things that maybe shouldn't be there. Whereas if it's an employee of the business who's got a set things to sell, they're not as emotional about winning things. They're
Yeah.
passionate and they're driven, but the emotion of their business and all that goes with running of that, I sometimes feel it can really affect a sales process, if you know what I mean.
I do, because the owner has the ability to say yes to everything, even when they should.
Anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have worked with a few people around going, that where that would be an issue, because they can change the price list, and and it's like, you need to get out of that area. But yes, anytime I hear anything, that I'd be very happy. Todd, we're kind of coming up to, but my goodness, we have been chatting for a long time. So Todd, apart from having hugs and when we can, and getting back to things, what are you looking forward to in the future?
Oh, apart from COVID being over, like everybody in the world's looking forward to
Like,
that, right? Yeah.
whenever that happens. Yes.
Yeah. Um, yeah. What do I most look forward to as an entrepreneur? I most look forward to building reoccurring revenue businesses. So in the agency model, maybe this is the traditional retainer, and maybe it's something more like a subscription, but
Mm,
something, because cash flow is so easy on a reoccurring revenue model, that I'm willing to take lower gross margin in order to have the consistent cash flow. In my life, I look forward to the next business deal. I look forward to, I'm just looking forward to, because being an EOS implementer or a coach, and in
mm,
your role, even being a mentor, right? We are in the business of trading time for money.
yeah.
And I know a lot of your listeners, if you're in leadership of a agency, it may occur for you, like you're trading time for money too. Sometimes quite literally your time is billable, and you're literally trading time for money. And for me as an entrepreneur, the things I look forward to the most are building reoccurring revenue streams that are divorced from my time, whatever
Beautiful.
that looks like. And so being a co-founder of Traction Tools is one thing like that.
Yeah.
Being an investor with the fund is one thing like that. I'm actually quite hopeful that in 2021, there's going to be some businesses in trouble, and that there'll be an acquisition opportunity that I'll get a chance to buy another business in 2021. And then I'm going to put EOS in place and get a leadership team there and get the business busy doubling. And
Yeah.
I'm not only passing out this Kool-Aid of EOS, that I believe that EOS is a secret sauce,
Yeah.
and that it is incredibly powerful once you get the right team in place, boy. And so much so that I'm interested in buying a business in the next year and putting EOS in place for another business of my own.
Oh,
That's how much I
fantastic.
believe in it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I'm,
exciting.
I'm also my clients. I'm, as an implementer coach, we graduate our clients. So typically clients stick around for about 2 years. And so I'm constantly looking for a couple new clients where I love the leadership teams, and they want
Yeah.
to do the work in Chicago. I don't travel anymore because of the age of my children. all my
Right.
clients.
I was going to say, yeah, 4 kids.
Yeah, 4 kids between 8 and 12 right now. And so
You.
being home's important to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and is there any businesses that you actually really like? Are there any industries? Obviously you have the marketing experience and the agency experience, but are there any industries that you're like green technology, or is there something that you're passionate or interested in?
No, I'm mostly interested in business models more
Great.
so
Yeah.
than the product or service. And so next year, it's my intention to buy a business from somebody over the age of 70 that has the potential for a reoccurring revenue stream,
Fantastic.
and likely in the United States, just
And
because I'm familiar with the legal and cultural
yeah,
issues here.
and you
So
can do that.
yeah, and then just because I'm born and live here, I know what's going on culturally and legally. So
Yeah, much easier. And how would people find you, Todd? What's the easiest way to actually find you?
if anybody wants to have a conversation with me, just email me at Todd at smartpartnersinc.com. Smart Partners is plural and inc.com. And my assistant does all my email, but he'll happily put us on the calendar for a call. And I'm
Yeah.
happy to have calls about anything. It doesn't even have to be EOS related.
Yeah.
If somebody would like to have a conversation, pick my brain about something, I'm wide open.
That's fantastic. Well, Todd, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you so, so much for being on the call today and on the show. And it was, you can get on with the start of your day in Chicago. It's an absolute pleasure. And I hope to look forward to meeting you in person soon.
That would be great. That would be great. Thanks so much for having me on.